Welcome to the deep dive. If you ever had a catchy, slightly sarcastic song about high school regrets, or maybe early 2000s nostalgia stuck in your head, there's a really good chance that song belongs to the band we're diving into today. Bowling for Soup.
We're definitely talking about the masters of the humorous pop-punk earworm. For 3 decades now, this band from Wichita Falls, Texas, has been navigating, well, everything. The major label system, independent fan funding, international devotion, all while keeping this incredible sense of humor.
Yeah, they really are the definition of rock and roll resilience, aren't they?
Totally.
Our mission today, it goes way beyond just their massive hits like 1985 or Girl All the Bad Guys Want. We're really doing a deep dive into the architecture of their whole career. We're talking 11 studio albums, constant touring, and this kind of parallel, multifaceted empire built by frontman Jaret Reddick.
Yeah.
We really want to understand how a band like this survives, and even thrives when the whole music industry shifts underneath their feet.
And there's some fascinating threads to pull on here, things that show just how deep their cultural reach actually goes. We'll definitely unpack that moment where Reddick seemed happier about winning worse dressed from Joan Rivers than, the actual Grammy nomination.
That's amazing.
And the truth behind that infamous UK farewell tour that, well, clearly wasn't a farewell at all.
Right.
Plus, the surprising connection they have to both Phineas and Ferb, and get this, the voice of Chuck E. Cheese.
Okay, I'm hooked already. Let's unpack this journey, starting right at the beginning. Mid-90s Texas, which feels pretty far removed from the usual pop-punk scenes.
Yeah, the narrative for pop-punk usually centers on Southern California, maybe Florida sometimes. But Bowling for Soup's origin story is, firmly rooted in Texas, Wichita Falls specifically. The band officially formed on June 4, 1994.
And what's really remarkable, I think, is just how long these guys knew each other before the band even started. This wasn't some ad in the paper, you know?
This was the culmination of a local music scene. Jaret Reddick and the original drummer, Lance Morrill, they first met way, way back in 1976.
Wow.
And Reddick and the founding guitarist, Burney, they met in high school back in 1986. Reddick himself was already playing music way before that. It started around 85 when he was just, 13?
So looking at those dates, they were practically lifelong friends before they even landed on the BFS name. That kind of deep history, it probably helped them handle lineup changes later on, you'd think.
Oh, absolutely. It really speaks to that tight-knit Texas scene they came out of. And interestingly, their musical influences, they kind of reflected that environment too.
How so?
Well, while we know them for that fast, catchy punk stuff, like the Ramones or Green Day later on, they actually grew up surrounded by the big, commercially successful heavy metal of the 80s.
Oh, okay.
The Quiet Riot, R.A.T.T., Mötley Crüe, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they had this ability to absorb the catchy hooks and the guitar flackiness of 80s metal and then combine it with the speed and the humor of punk. It gave them this really unique Texas flavor, I think.
I hadn't really put together how important that sort of 80s metal hook sensibility was to their DNA. And before they became the BFS, we know, they were cycling through a bunch of different bands and names in the local clubs, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We should definitely mention that list of apprenticeship bands. The Wichita Falls scene was totally their proving ground. There was this coffee house, The Refuge, owned by Burney's family, that was kind of central.
Okay.
And before the BFS name stuck, the core members were in groups with just fantastic names. Ready? The Persecuted, the Folkadouts, Slaw, Terminal Seasons, Cool Fork.
Cool Fork.
Yeah. And Rubberneck. It was actually Rubberneck that kind of morphed into Bowling for Soup. That shows, this wasn't an overnight success. It was years of playing, writing, iterating.
And the name itself, Bowling for Soup, it always felt a bit random, kind of goofy. Where did that actually come from?
Well, the origin is surprisingly maybe a bit more cultured, or at least derives from legendary comedy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the name comes from the phrase bowling for shit. It was part of a comedy routine by Steve Martin.
No way, Steve Martin.
Yeah, so they took that kind of humorous, slightly absurd concept and just cleaned it up a bit, made it distinctively their own.
That's brilliant. So, okay, 1994, they're established, they've got the name, but Wichita Falls probably felt a bit small after a while.
Yeah, exactly. They made the strategic move to Denton, Texas in 1996. And this period, it was just defined by pure DIY hustle. They put out a split album, Cellmates, that same year, and their first full-length Rock on Honorable Ones in 98, They were just grinding, selling CDs out of their van at shows.
But the real turning point, the moment that really changed things for them, it wasn't a big tour or some corporate deal, right? It was the success of their EP from '98, Tell Me When to... Whoa.
That EP is the absolute definition of grassroots success. Somehow they managed to sell over 10,000 copies completely independently.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. 1998, it's still mostly CDs, right?
Yeah.
Napster hadn't totally blown things up yet. Distribution was physical sales and just pure legwork.
Yeah.
Selling 10,000 units like that without major label backing, it proved there was a massive demand already there.
Yeah.
And that success, that's what directly led Jive Records to sign them. They basically built the audience themselves first.
That's incredible. They essentially walked into Jive saying, look, we already have proof of concept documented fans.
Exactly.
And even while they were starting down that more professional path, Reddick and the original bassist, Erik Chandler, they kept that grassroots connection going with acoustic shows, didn't they?
They did, yeah. From about 1999 right up until 2018, they did these acoustic gigs billed simply as Jaret and Erik. Mostly BFS songs, just stripped down. It's a perfect example of how Reddick is constantly juggling these multiple streams of performance, always staying connected to the fans who got them there in the first place. So the shift to Jive Records, that really kicked off their commercial ascent. Their major label debut, Let's Do It for Johnny, in 2000 was mostly a pretty smart move. They re-recorded their best earlier material for that bigger audience.
Right.
And they threw in that fun cover of Bryan Adams' Summer of '69.
But the world didn't really take notice in a huge way until 2002, right?
Yeah.
With Drunk Enough to Dance. That had the track that just perfectly captured their whole vibe. Girl, all the bad guys want.
Oh, totally. And that song, it didn't just cement their sound, it launched them into, well, the highest levels of the music world, really. In 2003, it gets a Grammy nomination for Best Pop Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal.
Which is huge for any artist. Massive career highlight.
Enormous. But here's the quintessential Bowling for Soup moment. This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Jaret Reddick, when he talks about that experience, he often highlights not the nomination itself, but the fact that he won the title of Worst Dressed from Joan Rivers on the red carpet.
No, seriously.
Seriously. That anecdote just perfectly encapsulates their whole brand. They're the kind of anti-establishment underdogs who prioritize a great story and a laugh over, industry prestige. It's what makes them so damn likable.
Only BFS could spin a fashion critique into the main event. That's amazing. And the album's success was so big that when they re-released it in 2003, they added more hits, right?
Yeah, they added Punk Rock 101 and that now famous cover of A Flock of Seagulls, I Ran, So Far Away.
And that cover became kind of key for them, didn't it, in terms of getting their music out there in different ways?
It absolutely did.
Yeah.
It served as the opening theme for the Saint Seiya, Knights of the Zodiac anime in North America, which exposed them to this completely different fan base. Animation fans, comic fans. Smart move.
Their commercial peak, though, really hit with A Hangover You Don't Deserve in 2004. That was the band's only album to actually break into the top 40, which is pretty remarkable for a pop-punk band back then.
And that was almost entirely powered by one song, 1985. That track reached number 23 on the Billboard Hot 100, became their biggest U.S. hit by far. But the story behind 1985, it's actually a fascinating look at how songs travel in the music world.
Right, because it wasn't purely a BFS original, was it?
No, it wasn't. The song was originally written by Mitch Allen from the band SR-71. Allen, who was kind of their peer in that scene, he essentially gave the song to BFS because he felt it just fit their lyrical style and their whole persona so perfectly.
That raises a good point. In pop punk, authenticity can be a big deal.
Yeah.
Did they get any flack for their biggest hit being written by someone outside the band?
Not really, because they just embraced it completely. It wasn't like a secret cover version. It felt like a collaboration. Allen sang backing vocals, he was in the music video. It actually showed a kind of maturity, I think. They recognized a perfect song for them no matter where it came from, and they just nailed it.
That willingness to collaborate, instead of maybe clinging to sole authorship, that feels like a key piece of their longevity puzzle. And that album also gave us Almost, and that great Texas anthem, Ohio, Come Back to Texas.
Definitely. And this whole era, it just saw them completely dominate the soundtrack space. Like you'd turn on a movie or a show, and there they were. They popped up in the Britney Spears movie Crossroads in 2002, playing at a graduation party.
I remember that.
They covered Modern English's I Melt With You for the Disney movie Sky High.
Yeah.
They were just everywhere.
And their connection with kids' media started pretty early, too. They did the theme song for the Nickelodeon movie Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, back in 2001.
But their most enduring and maybe most successful multimedia partnership, that came from their long run with Disney on Phineas and Ferb.
Ah, yes, the theme song.
They co-wrote and sang that absolutely ubiquitous theme song, Today is Gonna Be a Great Day. And just like their Grammy nod, it got high-level industry recognition too, an Emmy nomination in 2008.
So by the late 2000s, they weren't just like a successful touring band. They were kind of woven into the cultural fabric, especially for younger audiences, which really set the stage for the next phase, right? Independence and Jaret Reddick becoming this force.
Exactly. They even took control of their touring world by starting the Get Happy Tour in 2006, partnering with bands like Army of Freshmen, really solidifying their own place in that whole touring ecosystem.
Yeah, if the first decade was really about establishing Bowling for Soup, the second decade feels like it was about establishing Jaret Reddick as this like self-sustaining creative engine. And with the founding guitarist Chris Burney set to retire in 2025, Reddick becomes the last original member standing, which just underscores the fact that he is the engine, the constant songwriter, the business guy, the voice of the whole thing.
His work with Phineas and Ferb is such a perfect example of that diversification. It went way beyond just singing the theme song. He actually voiced a character, didn't he?
He did. He voiced Danny, the lead singer of that fictional 80s rock band Love Handle.
Love Handle, I remember them. And it wasn't just a quick voice cameo either. Reddick wrote several songs for the show, like Bouncin' Around the World. The showrunners clearly put immense creative trust in him. The whole band even showed up in cartoon form in one episode. Phineas and Ferb's Quantum Boogaloo just cemented their animated legacy.
Okay, so voicing a cartoon rock star for Disney is one thing. But his next big voice acting gig, this one is maybe the most strategically brilliant and kind of hilarious move of his career.
I totally agree. Since 2012, Jaret Reddick has been the official voice of the Chuck E. Cheese mascot.
Get it out!
The mouse.
The mouse himself took over as part of a big character revamp, and the irony is just delicious, right? The voice of a guy singing these self-deprecating songs about teenage angst and dating is now the official voice telling kids to eat pizza and have birthdays.
But strategically, it's genius, that kind of high-profile, steady voice work. It gives you exposure, probably decent residual income. It offers this financial stability that's totally separate from the ups and downs of the music industry. Exactly. It's a brilliant parallel career. It secures funding that lets him keep the band going for purely artistic reasons, not just because they have to tour.
His voice pops up in video games too, right?
Yeah. His versatility keeps going. He sang lead vocals and co-wrote lyrics for the theme song of the game Sonic Unleashed. The song was called Endless Possibility. His voice is just fundamentally tied to pop culture on all these different, sometimes really contradictory levels.
But he wasn't just content being like a voice for hire. He clearly needed control over the whole creative process, the distribution, which led him to start building his own infrastructure.
This is where you really see his entrepreneurial brain working. He set up Jaret, which was a songwriting and production team with Linus of Hollywood. That started around the time their relationship with Jive Records was getting kind of rocky.
Ah, okay.
This duo, Jaret, they worked on the band's Sorry for Partying album, and they even successfully crowdfunded their own album together called Rhymes with Vaginas.
Knuckles.
Jaret then basically became the foundation for their own independent label ventures. They co-founded Crappy Records, partnering with Oglio Records. I mean, this is textbook vertical integration, right? If the labels aren't doing it right, just build your own thing.
Totally. If you can't join them, beat them by building your own system.
Exactly. And Crappy Records became this platform not just for BFS, but for other artists they like MC Lars and The Leftovers. Reddick got complete creative control, totally bypassing the gatekeepers who'd shelved their last major label record. And then he took it even further by co-founding Built by Ninjas with Heath Balderston. That's a music video production group.
So let me get this straight. He went from singing the song to writing the song to producing the song to directing the music video for the song to owning the label that releases the song.
Pretty much. It's an end-to-end operation. And it shows this really deep strategic understanding of the modern music business that honestly not many musicians have. And somehow, he also found time to explore completely different musical styles.
Right, the side bands. There was a People on Vacation in 2010 with Ryan Hamilton, which was more straightforward rock. They put out some EPs like the Carry On EP. But the most drastic shift came just recently in 2022 with his first solo album, Just Woke Up.
There's a country album.
Full-on country.
Yep, going right back to those deep Texas roots, but leaning into a totally different lyrical style, different sound. It just shows that under the pop-punk frontman thing, Reddick is fundamentally a songwriter who loves melody and stories, whatever the genre. Although, interestingly, the sources do say that even this country project is set to be put on hold at the end of 2025.
Oh, really?
Yeah, suggesting his main focus is really shifting back to the core BFS operation, especially now during this big transition period for the band.
And that move towards Reddick building his own independent world, that was pretty much kicked off directly by that big disappointment with Jive Records in 2009. Tell us about the whole Sorry for Partyin' situation.
Oh, it was a really rough transition for them. The album comes out on Jive, but then after only 4 weeks on sale, the label essentially just shelved it, pulled the plug. They didn't even push a single to radio.
Wow, 4 weeks.
4 weeks. It was a super clear sign that the band's vision and what the label wanted commercially had just completely diverged, like irreconcilably.
And that failure basically forced their hand, right, made them pivot completely towards independence, and they became pretty early adopters of fan funding.
They totally did. They jumped onto platforms like Pledge Music pretty early on to fund new records. And that model, it wasn't just about getting the cash. It fundamentally changed the relationship with their fans and made people feel included in actually making the record.
Yeah.
And it let the band completely bypass any major label restrictions or interference. That fan-first approach led directly to successful projects like Lunch, Drunk, Love in 2010, and Drunk Dynasty in 2016.
And we also saw them kind of taking control of their own history around that time, too, with the songs people actually liked projects.
Yes. That was such a brilliant move of reclaiming their catalog. They put out Volume 1 in 2014 and then Volume 2 just recently in 2023. These albums are basically re-recorded versions of their biggest hits.
Why re-record them, though?
Specifically to replace the official label-released compilation from 2011, Playlist. The band felt like they had zero input on that one, that it wasn't representative. So this was the band saying, look, if you want the definitive BFS greatest hits curated by us, sounding how we want them to sound now, you buy our versions, taking back control.
Makes sense. Their fan loyalty, especially outside the U.S., is just legendary. We really have to talk about the U.K. phenomenon. Their following over there is just immense, right? Like a level of devotion few American bands ever really achieve.
Oh, their commitment to the U.K. market is absolutely unmatched. They've done so many U.K.-specific acoustic tours, multiple runs at the Get Happy tour over there. And all that dedication led to one of the most confusing but also kind of endearing contradictions in their whole history. The 2013 Bid UK Farewell Tour.
Right. The farewell tour that wasn't a farewell at all.
Yeah, exactly. Reddick made the announcement, citing personal reasons, financial reasons, basically suggesting they just couldn't keep up the grind of those long annual UK tours anymore. But crucially, he was really quick to confirm the band was absolutely not splitting up.
Okay.
The farewell was specifically aimed at the logistics of that annual, months-long tour format. Not a farewell to the UK fans themselves.
But the fans, and maybe the band too, just couldn't let that connection die, could they? Because they kept coming back.
They absolutely did. They proved that resilience by continuing to tour the UK pretty regularly, 2016, 2018, 2020. And all that loyalty, it culminates in this massive headline show they booked for Wembley Arena in December 2025. I mean, playing Wembley, that's a testament to an enduring, powerful relationship, not our retirement.
Definitely not. And that Wembley news came alongside some pretty major personnel news, too. There have been significant lineup changes recently.
Yeah, big shifts. Back in 2019, the original bassist, Erik Chandler, he departed for personal reasons. He was replaced by Rob Filichetti. And Filichetti wasn't exactly a stranger. He was already kind of integrated into their world. He'd played drums or percussion for them as a touring member before, and they knew him well from his time in other bands like Patent Pending and the Ataris. So, a familiar face.
And then the most recent shift, the really seismic one, was the official retirement of founding guitarist Chris Burney, announced in January 2025.
Yeah, Burney stepped away due to some medical developments, ending his, as he put it, 30 years of rocking balls.
Chuckles.
And the band handled this just perfectly, I think. They made a very definitive decision not to replace him. Their official statement was really powerful. You cannot replace a legend.
Wow.
Instead, they announced they would officially continue as a trio. Reddick, drummer Gary Wiseman, and Rob Filichetti.
It takes huge confidence to intentionally downsize the lineup after 3 decades like that. But despite these changes, their recent output really proves they still have their finger on the pulse, culturally speaking.
Oh, yeah. The Pop Drunk Snot Bread era, starting around 2022, is a great example. The single Alexa Bliss, which is about the WWE wrestler.
Right.
It was just this timely, funny, super kitschy track that went kind of viral. The music video had Alexa Bliss herself in it, and it got almost 6 million views by 2023. They still absolutely know how to write that perfect, immediate hook.
Touring in the last couple of years hasn't been without its challenges, though. During that 2022 Surf the UK tour, drummer Gary Wiseman had some kind of health scare.
Yeah, he suffered a mysterious illness mid-tour, which forced them to pivot really quickly. The rest of the dates had to be played either acoustically or in this kind of mixed format. They relied heavily on help from their friends, like members of the Dolly Rots and Lit stepping in.
Wow.
It really underscores how much they rely on that tight-knit pop-punk community. Everyone's always ready to help each other out when needed.
And finally, let's touch on their latest recordings, because there seems to be this interesting push towards audio quality. Their most recent single, Holding On to That Hate, which came out in September 2025, apparently made a significant technical jump.
Yeah, this is a detail that audio nerds, like us maybe, should pay close attention to.
Okay.
That track was one of the first things they recorded using something called the SSL Revival 4000.
SSL solid-state logic, the big studio consoles.
Exactly. The 4000 series is legendary in the recording industry. It's that classic, massive analog studio desk sound from the 70s and 80s. The revival part is key here. It means they are actively chasing that really rich, thick, warm analog sound in definition. They're calling it the latest leap forward in analog sound.
So even 30 years into their career, while they're embracing modern stuff like fan funding and multimedia, they're simultaneously leaning back towards these really high-quality, classic analog recording techniques. That's a fascinating combination.
You know, when you really try to analyze the BFS sound, you realize why they're kind of hard to pin down with just one label. People always say pop punk, but that feels, I don't know, a bit limiting given everything else that's in there.
Our Music had a pretty good description, I thought. They called it a feverishly catchy and humorous blend of power pop, ska, punk, and hardcore.
That's pretty good. And it's that blend, especially the emphasis on power pop, you know, the melody, the hooks, that really sets them apart from some of the more straightforwardly aggressive punk bands they often get compared to or list as influences.
And speaking of influences, you can really see that blend when you look at who they cite, right?
But of course, you've got the foundational punk acts in there. Green Day, the Ramones, Bad Religion, NOFX, Descendants, the usual suspects. But then Reddick will also throw in names like Elvis Costello.
Ah, okay, the melodic sense.
Exactly, whose melodic and lyrical smarts are clearly key to their success. And he even mentions Willie Nelson sometimes, which speaks again to that kind of genre-fluid Texas thing they absorbed growing up.
So they took the speed of punk, the big hooks maybe from 80s metal, the lyrical focus of power pop, filtered it all through the specific lens of Texas humor, and basically created a sound that's just uniquely theirs.
Yep.
But the future of that sound, that's the big question now, isn't it? Especially now that they are officially, intentionally, a trio.
The commitment seems absolute. Reddick on vocals and rhythm guitar, Wiseman on drums, and Felicetti on bass. But crucially, Rob Felicetti, who came in on bass, is now officially taking on the studio lead guitar duties as of 2025.
That's a huge shift.
It's massive. It suggests they're really re-engineering their whole musical dynamic, relying on Felicetti's versatility to fill the space left by a founding guitarist like Burney. It'll be interesting to hear how that changes things.
And they aren't exactly sitting around figuring it out. Their schedule looks packed, starting with kind of celebrating their history.
That's right. There's a new live album coming out, A Hangover You Definitely Deserve. Nice callback title. Set for release in October 2025. It was recorded during their show in Manchester back in February 2024. So a chance to capture their current live energy as a trio, basically.
And in a huge nod to the scene that helped build them, they're one of the first acts announced for the big 2025 revival of the Warped Tour.
Yeah. And to mark that announcement, they released a cover of Blink-182's The Rock Show, just perfectly linking their past and their future right back into that pop-punk landscape.
So looking even further ahead, their creative drive seems completely unstoppable.
It really does. They're apparently working on 2 separate recording projects right now. One is their 12th studio album, All New Material, and the other is a separate dedicated pop-punk covers album.
Wow.
They just refused to slow down even after losing a founding member and decided to carry on as 3. It was pretty remarkable. Yeah. Hashtag outro.
So what does all this mean for you, the listener?
Well, Bowling for Soup's 30-year career, it really serves as this kind of masterclass in modern music industry survival. They built on these tight, lifelong friendships from Texas. They found massive mainstream success with, Grammy nominations and soundtrack gold.
Mm-hmm.
And then, crucially, they managed to successfully pivot to complete self-sufficiency after getting dropped by the major label system. That's the really key part, I think.
Absolutely. Their story is just such a powerful lesson in diversification. Jaret Reddick's relentless output, all those strategic side ventures, voicing Chuck E. Cheese, doing stuff for Phineas and Ferb, running crappy records that provides the stability, the foundation that allows the main band, Bowling for Soup, to keep thriving artistically.
Yeah.
And the fact that they chose to continue as an officially defined three-piece after Chris Burney's retirement, instead of just trying to plug the gap with someone new. That shows this real commitment to authenticity and a deep trust in the dynamic they have right now. And finally, maybe a provocative thought for you to chew on. Given Jaret Reddick's proven ability to constantly shift between genres and musical personalities, combined with their newly declared desire to chase that really rich, warm analog sound using that classic SSL Revival 4000 console, how is that blend going to shape their upcoming 12th studio album? You've got this state-of-the-art analog sound meeting their enduring pop-punk humor.
Yeah, what does that even sound like?
Exactly. After 3 whole decades, they are still fundamentally searching for the latest leap forward, even if it means looking back technologically. You might find yourself Googling the SSL Revival 4000 next, just trying to imagine what kind of warmth is about to hit their next record.
That's all for this deep dive into the long and fascinating career of Bowling for Soup. Thanks so much for listening.
We'll see you next time.